The massive warship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a metal storm cloud. Commander Zartok stood on the bridge, his 4 arms crossed behind his back. His species, the Krellians, had conquered 1,000 worlds. Earth will be easy. Surface scans complete, Commander, said his tactical officer. The humans have retreated into their primitive forests. They abandoned their cities rather than face us. Zartok's mandibles clicked in amusement. Cowards. Deploy ground forces to Sector 7. That jungle they call the Amazon. Flush them out. The first wave of Krellian soldiers landed in the dense rainforest. Their advanced armor gleamed silver against the green canopy. Each soldier stood 8 feet tall, genetically enhanced for combat across the galaxy. Their plasma rifles could vaporize a tank. Lieutenant Krell led the advance team. His helmet display showed heat signatures scattered throughout the jungle. Primitive humans hiding in trees. He laughed over the comm. This will be finished before sunset. But the jungle was different from any battlefield they knew. The air was thick, heavy with moisture that clogged their armor's ventilation systems. Strange insects buzzed around their helmets. The ground beneath their feet was soft, unstable. Stay in formation, Krell ordered. These humans have no technology worth mentioning. No shields, no plasma weapons. Just primitive projectile weapons. Private Vorash was the first to notice something wrong. His motion sensors kept glitching. Sir, I'm getting strange readings. Movement all around us, but I can't lock onto anything. Probably animals, Krell dismissed. Keep moving. They pushed deeper into the green maze. Massive trees towered above them, their canopies so thick it blocked out the sun. Strange sounds echoed through the forest. Birds, insects, and something else. Something that didn't belong. Corporal Zek stopped suddenly. Sir, my armor's overheating. The humidity is affecting our cooling systems. Push through it, Krell snapped. We're warriors of the Krellian Empire. We've fought in the frozen wastes of Andromeda and the burning deserts of... The attack came without warning. Not from advanced weapons or massive explosions, but from the jungle itself. Vines that looked harmless suddenly tightened around ankles. Soldiers stumbled, their heavy armor making them clumsy in the soft earth. Then came darts. Small, primitive, barely visible. They found the tiny gaps in the armor's joints. Where technology protected, nature found a way through. What is this? Vorash shouted, pulling at a dart in his neck joint. Within seconds, his movements became sluggish. My systems are failing. The Krellians' advanced medical systems couldn't identify the toxins. Their databases had information on every known poison in the galaxy. But these were new. Earthborn. Evolution's answer to their invasion. Krell tried to rally his troops. Formed defensive positions. Returned fire. But returned fire at what? Their thermal imaging showed nothing. Their motion sensors detected movement everywhere and nowhere. The jungle had become their enemy, and they didn't know how to fight it. A figure emerged from the undergrowth. Not in advanced armor or carrying high-tech weapons. A human, wearing simple camouflage, face painted with mud, carrying what looked like a primitive projectile weapon. Impossible, Krell breathed. Our sensors should have, the human smiled. Around them, more figures materialized from the jungle. They had been there all along, invisible not through technology, but through skill, through understanding. These weren't regular soldiers. These were Earth's jungle specialists, men and women who had trained their entire lives in these environments, who knew every plant, every sound, every shadow. Captain Maria Rodriguez stepped forward. She had served in the Amazon for 15 years, first with the Brazilian Special Forces, then with the Unified Earth Defense Force. The jungle wasn't just her battlefield. It was her home. Welcome to Earth, she said in accented Galactic standard. You made a mistake coming here. Krell raised his plasma rifle, but his movements were slow, affected by the toxins. Maria was faster, not with technology, but with experience. The tranquilizer dart hit him in the neck joint, and the mighty Krellian warrior fell to his knees. All around them, the jungle came alive. What the Krellians thought were trees revealed themselves as camouflaged humans. What they thought were animal sounds were actually communication signals. The primitive humans had turned their environment into a weapon. Back on the warship, Zartok watched the tactical display in disbelief. An entire platoon of his finest warriors, defeated not by superior technology, but by humans working with their environment. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're losing contact with ground teams across all jungle sectors. The forests, the mountains, the swamps, everywhere we land, the humans seem to know the terrain better than our computers can map it." Zartok's four hands clenched into fists. They had invaded desert worlds where the sand itself was hostile. They had conquered ice planets where the temperature could freeze blood in seconds. But they had always relied on their technology to overcome nature. These humans were different. They didn't overcome nature. They were part of it. "Deploy the heavy assault mechs," Zartok ordered. "Burn the jungles. Leave them nowhere to hide." But Maria Rodriguez and her teams were already prepared for that. Earth's defenders had studied every invasion in galactic history. They knew the Krellians' tactics, and they knew something the invaders didn't. Earth's wilderness wasn't just trees and animals. It was a living system honed by millions of years of evolution, and humans hadn't conquered it through technology alone. They had learned to work with it. As the first assault mechs landed, Maria smiled. The real fight was about to begin. The Krellians thought they were fighting humans. They were wrong. They were fighting Earth itself. The massive Krellian assault mechs crashed through the jungle like metal giants. Each stood 30 feet tall, armed with flame projectors and plasma cannons. Lieutenant Commander Thox piloted the lead mech, confident that raw firepower would succeed where infantry had failed. "Burn it all," he commanded. "Every tree, every bush. Leave these primitives nowhere to hide." Flames erupted from the mech weapons, turning green forest into black ash. But Maria Rodriguez watched from a hidden position, unfazed. She spoke into her radio using click patterns, not words. The Amazon had taught them that long before any invasion. Deep in the forest, Sergeant James Chun received the signal. The American-Chinese soldier had trained with indigenous tribes for years, learning secrets passed down through generations. He looked at his team, warriors from every corner of Earth. Russians who knew the Siberian wilderness, Australians who could survive the outback, Norwegians who thrived in Arctic conditions. "They think bigger weapons mean victory," Chin whispered. "Time to show them why Earth survived for 4 billion years." The first sign of trouble came when Thox's mech stepped into what looked like solid ground. The Earth gave way, revealing a carefully concealed pit. Not deep enough to destroy the mech, but enough to trap one leg. As the machine struggled, vines that had looked dead suddenly sprouted. Not normal vines, but ones the humans had cultivated, mixed with compounds that corroded metal. "What is this?" Thox roared, trying to burn away the plants. But for every vine destroyed, 2 more seemed to appear. The jungle's humid air turned the mech's flames into steam, reducing visibility to nothing. Then came the insects, clouds of them, drawn by pheromones the humans had spread. They entered the mech's air intakes, clogging filters. The Krellians had protection against radiation, against vacuum, against 100 different hostile environments. But they hadn't prepared for angry Earth wasps. Private Nina Volkov, a Russian wilderness expert, led her team along the canopy highways, branches that could support human weight, but would snap under Krellian armor. She carried no advanced weapons, just knowledge. Knowledge of which plants produced toxic sap, which insects carried diseases, which fungi could grow in electronic systems. "The invaders think war is about technology," she said to her team. But Earth's first warriors were bacteria. They've been fighting for billions of years. The Krellians' mech continued their advance, but something was wrong. Their pilots reported strange malfunctions. Navigation systems failed as magnetic interference from underground mineral deposits confused their sensors. Air filters clogged faster than designed. Joint servos jammed with mud that seemed to harden like concrete. Commander Zartok watched from orbit, his frustration growing. "How are primitives doing this? They have no EMPs, no cyber warfare capabilities. His science officer pulled up data. Sir, the humans aren't using technology to fight technology. They're using nature. The mud contains microorganisms that produce a natural cement when disturbed. The plants release spores that interact with our alloys. Even their insects seem to target our weak points. Impossible. Nature cannot defeat superior engineering. But on the ground, it was happening. Maria Rodriguez coordinated attacks across multiple fronts. In the African jungles, Kenyan special forces used elephant paths to outmaneuver Krellian patrols. The aliens' heavy armor sank in paths worn soft by centuries of animal traffic, while humans moved freely. In the Siberian forests, Russian teams led Krellians into areas where the permafrost was melting. Solid ground became swamp in minutes, trapping million-credit war machines in ancient mud. The cold that Krellians thought they could resist was different when combined with wet clothes and failing heating systems. Australian teams in the outback used controlled fires, not to destroy, but to create smoke screens that confused thermal imaging. Aboriginal techniques, thousands of years old, proved more effective than electronic countermeasures. We need orbital bombardment, Fox gasped, his mech now completely entangled. Strange fungi grew on his view screen, feeding on the protective coatings. Destroy everything from space. But Maria had planned for that too. Her teams had spread throughout the wilderness, never concentrating in numbers large enough to make good targets. Orbital strikes would destroy forests, but the humans would survive in caves, in underground rivers, in places mapped by generations of explorers. Captain Rodriguez met with her core team in a hidden cave system. The limestone caverns stretched for miles, mapped by local spelunkers who share their knowledge freely. Here, surrounded by stone older than complex life, they plan the next phase. They're getting desperate, reported Lieutenant Kowalski, a Polish mountain warfare specialist. Intercepted communications show they're considering biological weapons. Maria nodded. Let them try. Dr. Patel, are your teams ready? Dr. Rashid Patel, India's leading expert in environmental biology, smiled grimly. We've prepared. Every major ecosystem has rapid response teams. The moment they release anything, we have countermeasures. Fungi that eat their bioweapons, bacteria that neutralize their toxins. Earth's biosphere has survived 5 mass extinctions. It knows how to adapt. The war was evolving in ways the Krellians never imagined. Their military doctrine, successful across 1,000 worlds, was failing against an enemy that didn't fight with weapons, but with an entire planet's ecosystem. Young Private Thompson from New Zealand watched a Krellian patrol through his scope. He didn't shoot. Instead, he released a jar of specially bred mosquitoes, carriers of a mild fever that would make the aliens sluggish in the humid heat. Not fatal, but debilitating when combined with everything else. My grandmother fought wars with guns, he whispered. I fight with what the land gives me. The jungle special forces had become something more than soldiers. They were Earth's immune system, using every trick evolution had developed. Quick strikes followed by vanishing into environments the Krellians couldn't navigate. Poison, disease, confusion, and fear. Zartok received another report. More mechs down, not destroyed but neutralized. Soldiers sick with ailments their medical systems couldn't cure. Equipment failing in ways the engineers couldn't explain. They fight without honor, he raged. No true warrior uses such tactics. But his second-in-command, an older Krellian who had studied military history, spoke carefully. Sir, perhaps honor is not universal. These humans fight as their world taught them. And their world has been teaching for longer than our civilization has existed. The realization was beginning to sink in. The Krellians had expected to fight a technological war. Instead, they were fighting evolution itself. Every Earth organism, from the smallest bacteria to the largest trees, had become a potential weapon in human hands. As night fell over the Amazon, Maria Rodriguez looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Krellian fleet waited. They still had superior numbers, superior technology. But They were learning what every invader of Russia had learned, what every army that tried to control Afghanistan discovered, what the jungle had taught generations of warriors. Earth doesn't just belong to humans. And when threatened, the entire planet fights back. The war was far from over, but the tide was turning. The galaxy's most feared military was being humbled not by advanced weapons or superior tactics, but by humans who understood a simple truth. On Earth, nature always wins. The only choice is whether you fight with it or against it. The Krellians had chosen wrong. Commander Zartok stood before the Galactic Council's holographic projection, his forearms trembling with barely contained rage. The other member species watched as the mighty Krellian Empire's leader reported something unprecedented in their 1,000-year history of conquest. Requesting immediate withdrawal from Earth, he said, each word tasting like poison. The planet is unconquerable. Shocked silence filled the chamber. The Yorathi representatives' crystalline form pulsed with disbelief. The Krellians flee from primitives who haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel. They're not primitives, Zartok replied, his voice heavy. There's something far more dangerous. On Earth, Maria Rodriguez stood in the recovered city of Manaus, watching Krellian transport ships evacuate their remaining forces. The jungle had already begun reclaiming the areas burned in the fighting, green shoots pushing through ash with remarkable speed. Captain, Lieutenant Shun approached. The Arctic team reports the last Krellian base is abandoned. The Siberians are tracking their retreat. Maria nodded, but felt no celebration. Too many had died. Too much forest had burned. Yet Earth had endured, as it always did. The turning point had come when the Krellians made their final mistake. Frustrated by constant defeats, they had attempted to poison Earth's water systems with off-world toxins designed to kill carbon-based life. They hadn't understood that Earth's organisms had spent billions of years developing defenses against every possible threat. Dr. Patel's team had detected the toxins within hours. By the end of the day, they had introduced specially selected bacteria that not only neutralized the poison, but converted it into fertilizer. The jungle grew stronger from the very weapon meant to destroy it. The Krellians thought they were fighting us, Patel had explained to the gathered resistance leaders. They never understood they were fighting 4 billion years of evolution. Every extinction event, every climate change, every catastrophe had prepared Earth's biosphere for this moment. The war's final phase had seen increasingly desperate Krellian tactics, met by increasingly creative human responses. When the invaders used sonic weapons to disorient human forces, the jungle fighters worked with dolphins and whales who could counter-frequency the attacks. When the Krellians released nanobots designed to consume organic matter, Earth's fungi networked together in ways that confused and trapped the microscopic machines. Most devastating to Krellian morale was the realization that humans weren't controlling nature, they were partners with it. Indigenous knowledge keepers from the Amazon, the Congo, the Australian outback, and other wild places had shared secrets passed down through millennia. These weren't just survival techniques, but deep understanding of how living systems work together. Sergeant Volkov had demonstrated this perfectly during the siege of the Ural Mountain stronghold. Instead of attacking the fortified Krellian position directly, her team had redirected a river, not with explosives or machinery, but by working with beavers, using pheromones, and food placement to encourage dam building in strategic locations. Within weeks, the impregnable fortress was flooded, its electronics shorted, its occupants forced to evacuate. Your ancestors worked with mammoths, she had told her team. We work with what remains. The principle is the same. Respect the land, and it will fight beside you. The Krellians' final attempt at victory had been a direct assault on Earth's command structure. Elite troops, protected by the best armor technology could provide, had struck at hidden bases worldwide. They succeeded in destroying buildings, equipment, communication arrays. But they couldn't destroy what mattered. The knowledge lived in people's minds, passed through songs and stories. The resistance network wasn't technological, but organic, like mycorrhizal networks that connected forest plants. Destroy one node, and information flowed through 100 others. Commander Zartok himself had led the assault on what intelligence indicated was the main human command center. They found a cave, as reported. But instead of a high-tech facility, they discovered children learning traditional songs, elders teaching plant medicine, and walls covered with art showing the history of human-nature cooperation. An old woman, perhaps 90 years old, had looked at the towering commander without fear. "You want to defeat Earth?" she had said in broken galactic standard. "First defeat the rain, then defeat the wind. When you've conquered every storm, every earthquake, every virus, come back. We'll still be here." The retreat had begun soon after, not because of military defeat in the traditional sense, but because the Krellians finally understood the true nature of their enemy. They weren't fighting humans. They were fighting a planet where every organism had evolved to survive, adapt, and overcome. Back on the Krellian warship, Zartok compiled his final report for the Galactic Council. His words would be studied by military academies for generations. Earth classifies as a level 10 death world, not because of its technology or weapons, but because its inhabitants have achieved symbiosis with their environment. Where other species overcame their planets, humans joined with theirs. Their bacteria are weapons. Their insects are surveillance. Their plants are defensive systems. Their animals are allies. Recommendation: quarantine Earth. Do not attempt invasion. Do not attempt colonization. The humans are not the danger. The danger is that they have made their entire world conscious of threats and capable of response. They call their planet Mother Earth. We now understand why. A mother protects her children, and her children have learned to protect her in return. Maria Rodriguez watched the last Krellian ship disappear into the sky. Around her, the jungle hummed with life. Birds returned to their songs. Insects resumed their endless cycles. The forest began the slow work of healing. "Think they'll be back?" Chen asked. Maria shook her head. "They'll spread word through the galaxy. Earth is not for taking." She knelt, placing her hand on the rich soil. Our ancestors knew this truth. We forgot it for a while, lost in our cities and technology. But when threatened, we remembered. Teams around the world began the restoration work, not rebuilding with concrete and steel, but working with nature to repair the damage. Where the Krellians had burned, humans planted. Where they had poisoned, Earth's organisms cleaned. The planet and its people healed together. The jungle special forces didn't disband. They evolved, becoming Earth's permanent guardians, teaching others the old ways enhanced by new understanding. Biology and technology working together, but always with respect for the natural world that had saved them. Other species would come, drawn by curiosity or greed. They would find Earth ready, not with shields and weapons, but with the combined evolutionary power of an entire living world. A world where humans had finally learned their place, not as conquerors of nature, but as part of it. In schools across Earth, children learn new lessons. How to read the forest warnings. How to work with predators and prey alike. How to be human in the truest sense. Clever apes who had survived, not through domination, but through cooperation. The galaxy had learned to fear Earth, but not for the reasons they expected. They feared a species that could turn their entire planet into a conscious defensive system. They feared humans who fought with evolution itself as their ally. Most of all, they feared the truth the Krellians had discovered. Earth didn't need to develop planet-killing weapons or massive fleets. It had something far more powerful. It had 4 billion years of survival instinct, and humans who had finally learned to listen to it. The war was over. Earth was free. And in jungles, forests, deserts, and mountains around the world, silent watchers stood guard. They carried modern weapons, but trusted ancient knowledge. They were soldiers, scientists, and shamans combined. They were Earth's immune system, and they would never sleep again. As Maria Rodriguez returned to the deep jungle for training new recruits, she smiled at the irony. The Krellians had come to conquer what they saw as a primitive world. Instead, they had helped humanity remember who they really were. Not separate from nature, but part of the greatest fighting force in the galaxy. The jungle closed around her, welcoming her home. Somewhere in the canopy, a bird called out a warning. She understood it perfectly. All was well. Earth was watching, and Earth would endure, as it always had, with its newest partners in the eternal dance of survival. The galaxy would remember this lesson. Never underestimate a species that has made peace with their death world, for they have become deadlier than any weapon technology could create. They have become one with the planet itself. And planets, as the Krellians learned, never lose.